Good day. Um, I'm David Jacob, CEO and Identity Management Specialist from the Verse of Education Library based in Pretoria, South Africa. I would like to tell you a bit more about our company. Our company was founded about 3, 4 years ago, but it was research and development for the last 6, 7 years that brought us to where we are now with the forensic identity management solutions that we provide. We've seen a lot of problems in the market with the global identity problems, and most importantly, it's the crime that's related to identity theft and identity fraud that spills over to all institutions, from banks right through to your small person selling goods, whatever. They do not know who the person they are working with, as well as the trust that's between clients and institutions. This has become a real problem. Crimes related to identity theft obviously includes your money laundering, which is currently global, a massive problem. You're looking at about 3% of global GDP. That's 3% of that that's attributed to money laundering. Then obviously cybercrime, getting out of control with new artificial intelligence and Internet of Things coming into play with that. How do you prevent that if you haven't got your identity management firstly in place? Then obviously general fraud, human trafficking, which is a huge problem worldwide. Globally, that's 150 billion US dollars problem. And then the new problem out of identity management, synthetic identities. Synthetic identities is something where you create identities out of people onto platforms that does not even exist. These people that is on the platforms is not even a real person, a real world human being. So in essence, what we do is we create an identity, a master identity of a single existing real world individual human being. So we create an identity on our system, a master identity, which is then allowed to create a digital identity, either for various platforms, and then the reference self-sovereign identity, which you'll find in the discussion I have regarding our different products and services. Um, a lot of ID management systems is coming up like mushrooms everywhere around the world, and a lot of them are focusing on the self-registration of an individual. This is most probably the single most dangerous and riskiest solutions ever. On these platforms, I've registered myself 7 times on one of these platforms under different aliases. You can just imagine what the syndicates will do with this and creating synthetic identities. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions most probably, and they will then hit the financial institutions big time. In looking what we want to do with Brazil is that we're looking for the partnership to place our solutions into Brazil and obviously the South Americas. Our solution is very unique because it's based on forensic protocols. It's a 100% accurate identity verification using core fingerprints as the core. And we're very proud of what we've created. The research and development has allowed us to create a very good solution. Um, I've got a couple of partners in various divisions. Obviously, on the software side, we've looked at the best software to utilize. We've got forensic individuals in our company. We've got great support of our company with various communication skills. And obviously, the different forensic parts includes fingerprints and even DNA. Um, we want to use our solution to reinstall trust between people. We also want to create a solution for the future where we know that once you've registered onto this solution, you will be able to be verified anytime in the future, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now. If you're deceased, you can still be verified. So our term or our goal is not to just bring into play a small, quick and easy product. It's a product that's been defined as really unique, and it has got a length of time for it to be utilized. The DOL system allows us to link the real world human being to cyber world digital identity due to our forensic protocol that we follow. We recognize the real world human being identity that we are taking into the digital world, similar to any forensic evidence that we're collecting from a crime scene, for instance. Thus, we follow this protocol and chain of custody 100%. Core to our biometrics that we collect, the fingerprints, um, allows us to then create the digital identity and then the reference self-sovereign identity, of which both can be referenced back to this single real-world human being. This single real-world human being can either be an existing living human being or somebody that's already passed away if we collect, obviously, the biometrics from that deceased corpse or cadaver. Creating the forensic solution that we wanted to have in the identity management arena, we were obviously looking for the very best ABIS solutions, as well as hardware that can capture the best images we require, especially fingerprints, as this is our forensic core part that we utilize. Our solution allows us to enroll as many people as required. You can only enroll once onto the system, and you can also verify only yourself against yourself on the system. The master identity that we create belongs to the person that claims that identity. If you refute that identity, somebody else is registered under your name, then the proof of the artifact comes into play, and both parties will have to prove who they really are and who is the real owner of that identity. Upon enrollment, we only take specific personal information that we collect, and we collect, like earlier mentioned, fingerprints as core. We collect the face initial with the initial enrollment, and then obviously we can enroll iris and voice as well. It's all 10 fingerprints, all those that is available on the system or on the individual for that matter for the system. We prefer to use the LES technology as promoted and also supported in Brazil by integrated biometrics, which allows us to have the most clear and most defined fingerprints, not just for the system, for verification and authentication at later stages, but also to take users' forensic evidence whenever it is needed. As mentioned, we do capture irises if required, although this is not a forensic tool or a forensic biometric. It still helps to verify a person quicker, but it does not provide you with the forensic evidence. This is an auxiliary, as is voice, to the fingerprints as core and then the facial that we do capture. As you can see, we capture all the information that's required. The personal information that we store is obviously according to what is applicable in the country or for the environment. We create that. Eyes, snapshot of the fingerprints and facial and all that as mentioned. Due to the fact that there's obviously false acceptance rate and false rejection rates on many of these AFISs and that, we have the potential to do an adjudication on the software that we have, which allows us to match and verify fingerprints. When there is any adjudication needed, we collect the one that has been trying to be verified against that on the system, and obviously then we measure to that is on the system. In most cases, it won't be a photograph, but it will always be fingerprints that we need to adjudicate. The system that we use, the AFIS system, is of such a nature that it actually can define the different patterns of fingerprints from arches to tented arches, loops, radial loops, whorls, and even any other contortions on the fingerprints. It allows us for this to capture it correctly, place it into specific areas, and it makes it a much more accurate system than anything that's available on the market. In the fact where we need to do a comparison of fingerprints in the adjudication. The system allows us to see the fingerprints in the raw image on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, it actually defines it into a more just a stringy effect, and we can place the markings as what they created onto the biometric system. We verify as forensics experts on the system. We can then create where we see the similar minutiae on the prints, and ensure that yes, it is either the person that's being adjudicated, or no, it's not that individual. It defines DAL as unique in the identity management arena is basically that we have forensic experts working as the backbone to our whole solution. Firstly, we have the fingerprint experts that allows us to not just adjudicate on the Ieif system, but to ensure that everybody or anybody that's trying to authenticate on the system is really that person of the claiming the master identity, or 0% that person. In the event that the adjudication process on the Ieif system has been completed and it's not the individual or the individual but still a query, it's sent through to the forensic department, where the print that's in question is matched against those on the system, physically or using specialized forensic tools. This allows us to match the fingerprint and then to ensure that we can take this to a court. We firstly find the fingerprint if it's the same person on this system, and obviously then we link the different minutiae that we see towards it. As you can see on this is basically the final phase in the forensic parts, where the minutiae that's found on the similar fingerprints or the same fingerprints is then given a number to allocate it to show that these are the 7 points that's beyond argument. In the event that we don't find a match, this is obviously then stored as forensic evidence for any court under subpoena for us to present this in a court of law. To ensure that the identity management solutions we provide is accessible to any industry, from small to very large to governments, we have created identity as a service products. Firstly, and this is basically also a central part of the identity management solution, is that any company that implements our solution will have to use this. Firstly, it's packages a quantity of registrations and then verification for authentications per month over a certain period, and it's obviously packaged on a prepaid method where you buy a certain amounts, like I mentioned just now, of the registrations and verifications over a period of 36 months. No longer than 36 months, because we need to know that the individuals registered on the system is still alive for that aspect. As this is the central part of the identity management, everybody that's registered according to the forensic protocol is obviously then stored on the forensic platform with the fingerprint backbone. The accuracy of this verification with the fingerprints is obviously 100% yes or no, this is the individual. We do not provide any information regarding the person's information. We are the custodians of that individual's identity, and we only say yes, this is the individual, or no, this is not the individual. Our multi-factor authentication solution, which is also based on the core or the central part of the identity management being the correct and registration or enrollment of a person according to our forensic protocols, allows us to offer a multimodal identification system. This is basically 7 and more factors, because we link a lot of attributes and personal information just regarding that identity together, and we can then provide a very high certainty that this is the individual when needed to present their multi-factor authentication. This works face-to-face, for instance, going into the bank where they can quickly then verify the individual without biometrics, as well as if somebody is on the road and needs to be verified by the bank via telephone. This works on SMS and an OTP or on the USSD, depending on what the client's preference is. We also can then, with this, reference back to the individual that was registered on the system because of all the factors that we've created and the audit trials through the whole system. Lastly, our new moving forward into the future method of verification. Obviously, the self-sovereign identity has become very much in play with various platforms. The problem with the self-sovereign identity is obviously that they collect digital identity from various decentralized identifiers to create an identity most of the time. And this is where a lot of synthetic identities is created. In our situation, we create a Genesis block on the blockchain of the identity that we captured according to forensic protocol initially. We pass a digital signed attestation to the individual, which then can be utilized to provide the proof of identity. Also, this is a non-biometric authentication, and we call this, with the digital signed attestation, a reference self-sovereign identity. In conclusion to this video, diverse authentication library is based on three core principles. One, the creation of a true identity. This means that we link the real world human being to the digital identity with forensic protocol to ensure that we can prove that that's that identity on our system. Secondly, that identity that we've created on system is called the master identity. The refuting of that master identity has got to be done forensically and obviously in a court of law. And thirdly, we make an identity worthless to anybody else except the owner of such an identity. This ensures that a huge amount of crimes related to identity theft and fraud is proactively prevented. We are looking for a partner in the Brazil, South America arena as discussed, to take this true identity management to those areas and obviously the countries available. Obviously, we are the first company that will be able to nullify synthetic identities. And at the end of the day, any company that's employing this solution or implementing this solution will be obviously upping their bottom line and be at a KYC that has not been achieved as yet. This is optimizing your KYC, trust between the client and the institution, and then obviously curbing losses, preventing a lot of crime. Crimes like money laundering, cybercrime, and all that can be managed through the system. Thank you.